has been arrested. One of them, a hip hop artist, Portuguese. The Angola 15 is a hashtag. And I think that where you have some Pan-African movements, we definitely need more. One that's heavily underrepresented in terms of Pan-Africanism and is not talked about as much as Senegal and Burkina Faso is the situation that's happening in Angola. Artists and activists tried to call out, of all people, Nicki Minaj, who went to Angola to perform, to say, hey, this hip-hop artist is in prison, you're a hip-hop artist. She talked to some of the human rights groups, and then we saw pictures of her and the daughter of the president, smiling and happy. So that was a failure, maybe because it was Nicki Minaj, but also there has been a lack of kind of Pan-African mobilization around that issue, unlike Senegal and Burkina Faso.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. I failed to talk about some of the ground rules. I think we have about an hour and a half for the entire program, and with 4 different speakers. What we'd like to do is ask each speaker, each panelist, if you would just provide us with your opening remarks, say between 7 and 10 minutes. And then we have some questions for each of you, and then we'll open it up to the audience in the tradition of Ubuntu. You know, I am because we are, therefore I am. So it'll be free-flowing, but just to get started, if you would just keep your remarks under 10 minutes. The next panelist is I think everyone knows him. He's someone that I met many years ago when I was headed to Africa, to Senegal. And I was told at that time that if I wanted to advertise the trip to Senegal and Gorée Island, I needed to get on WPFW, and I needed to be to get to know this gentleman, Netfa. And I got into the studio, and there he was, and as he was questioning me, he was saying to me, yeah, but I understand you have a lot of passion and energy with this subject that you're discussing, so I'm going to try to get this passion out of you. So now, back to you as the panelist, one of the panelists. Please come up and share with us your opening remarks, Netfa, with the passion that you were looking for from me.
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to time myself. My name is Netfa Freeman. I represent an organization, a new organization called Pan-African Community Action. Pan-African Community Action. And so I guess I want to start by presenting my disposition, so to speak, around Pan-Africanism. So I come from a disposition that looks at Pan-Africanism in honor of Kwame Nkrumah and how he defined it. So Pan-Africanism more as, not so much as an ideology or philosophy, but as an objective. And of course, those things are also relevant to the definition, but I think one of the things that Nkrumah did contribute to the Pan-African movement, which is very, I think, instructive and very constructive, is the notion of one united socialist Africa. And that concept being also something that a united continent would benefit all people of African descent everywhere in the world. This presupposes also that we have projects, transcontinental projects. The people of African descent are actually working with each other around the world. A lot has changed since Nkrumah, since Ghana was the CPP and under Nkrumah was overthrown and everything. Today, we have to kind of revive. We have to reconsider the challenges and prospects of Pan-Africanism. And so, right now, I mean, I a little bit. So, my initiation or orientation into Pan-Africanism was through the All African People's Revolutionary Party. The APRP with Kwame Ture and a whole bunch of other people. And as a young person, we were grappling, a young person, an African, in the United States, we were grappling with the ideas, what should Pan-African action, or what should a project of building Pan-Africanism look like if you live in the United States? Is it just supporting things that are going on the continent, building resources or whatnot, and raising Africa? Because really, I mean, we're Africans as an extension of our experience coming from Africa. We actually are afflicted with the same situations in terms of poverty and everything else right here in the United States or anywhere else in the world where we are. So we have to also be building projects that deal with that situation, to deal with our situations wherever we are in the world. And so it brings me to, so we need to know, well, look, it's interesting because when Sister was talking, one of the things I wanted to bring up, and she put it out there so eloquently, especially at the end, but the word wasn't mentioned. One of the things I think is indispensable is that we need to resurrect our commitment and actually define class struggle in Africa. And this is what Nkrumah talked about, right? He wrote a book called Class Struggle in Africa. And we need to understand that some of the challenges that we face right now in trying to unite our people and organize our people around a Pan-African project, around a Pan-African objective and goal, are afflicted with our, those of us who may claim or embrace Africa, but have a class relationship that's more in line with the status quo, more in line with the West and imperialism and capitalism, right? And so we have to look at what is our relationship to the power structure in the world, the global power structure. How much do we benefit or not? I mean, this is what class is. I mean, in this country, we tend to reduce class to stuff like middle class and upper class and things that don't really mean anything. And we have an aversion to the type of definitions that have been concretized by the ideologues of socialism and communism. We don't want to look at that. But those are, and we might need to revive the definitions, but we have to be scientific about it. And we can't shy away from what different people contribute in terms of our relationship and our understanding of class. All the independent African states, those who were progressive or revolutionary, and every place else in the world, were overthrown because of class contradictions. People, Nkrumah was overthrown because those, and I want to also talk, if we look at the first conference of independent African states, and I don't know if people are familiar with the formation, the Monrovia and Casablanca groups, and the Monrovia groups wanted to have an independent Africa, but they united Africa, but more keeping their autonomous states and having more power within their states. And the Casablanca group, more radical, also anti-imperialist and everything, wanted a united, federated Africa. And there was reasons for that. And it's no mistake, I guess we should say, that one was called the Monrovia group, and I'm not trying to, but remember, and it was taking place in Liberia, but in that sense, there were leaders who were, neocolonialism was already, arising in Africa. And because of neocolonialism, people benefited, and imperialist powers benefited from, they already decided, the West already decided they have to give independence to African countries. But how they do so, which is what neocolonialism is. Keeping the essential relationship, economic and political relationship with the West and capitalism, but allowing you to have some nominal independence. And the Casablanca group recognized that we have to have a complete break, and we have to unite. If in unity there is strength, we have to have the most broadest encompassing unity there possibly can be, and that's a united Africa that could also be a base, a fortified base for other people of African descent around the world struggling against the same issues. And so this is what we're dealing with now. In Pan-African community action, we're also looking at this back to the question of what do you do if you're African in the United States and you're trying to build Pan-Africanism. One, we understand that we have to recognize our connection with other people around the world, but also work locally. Because it can't be, this is the class struggle aspect. Pan-Africanism can't just be built by the academics and the intellectuals and people who have some kind of book knowledge about the history and all that. It has to be built from the masses of the people. When we say something comes from the ground up, that means the people who don't necessarily have formal education and can't read and write got to be some architects in this project of Pan-Africanism. That means we got to be in the streets. In communities, building relationships, building projects in the communities wherever we are in the world. And those projects need to be doing that with the purview that we're going to find some way to synthesize our activities, building institutions and agencies and things like that to help feed and clothe the people. We have to figure out how do we participate in the electoral process in this country. It cannot be through the Democratic and Republican parties. If in fact the electoral process has anything to offer from us, it must be through us building a grassroots movement in which the candidates that we put forth, that we nominate, are fortified and identified within the confines of our struggle. They're fortified within our struggle. We know who they are. We put them out there. It's not a question of trying to get some candidate who is from already representing some party who decides to run to adopt our platform. This person is assigned to carry out our platforms and do whatever we can do on the local level, all the way up to the federal level is the hardest thing to get to. But we can do things on the local level when it comes to electoral politics. But we have to be revolutionary about it. We have to be very careful about how do we engage with reforms and not become reformists. How do we make reforms be an intermediate step to revolution? That's what Pan-Africanism has to do. And that's what we have to do as Pan-Africans. So let me say a little bit, I know I don't have a lot of time. Pan-African Community Action is a DMV-based organization that looks to work with the most impacted people of the DMV to organize, I wish I could read from the thing there, but to organize projects, direct action, political education drives. We just had a forum, pop-ed forum yesterday in the community, how community control of the police can empower black women. And that was the forum. So one of the things we organized is community control. I probably don't have much time now. So community control.
Right? I'm trusting you.
I forgot to look at it, my thing was there. Oh, 2 minutes, a minute and 42 seconds. So community control, one is community control that police performed around the murder, and we know the murder by police of us all around the country, murder of Alonzo Smith, by special police, now private police, now the MPD licenses private police to be in our communities, and now this person, so anyway, not to get into that case, but one is community control of the police, and people want to know what that means. It means that the community has a say on the budget, who's the police, what their duties are, everything that has to do with the police. Right now, these people who are agents of the state and have a legacy that goes, I mean, how many people know about the modern day police, and actually other countries have replicated and used the model of U.S. police in their countries. The history of the earliest history of U.S. police come from the slave patrols in the South. You know, to capture runaway slaves and keep down resurrections and all those kind of things. In the North, they have a similar, but latter, almost a century later, history where they were they were private security agencies to protect the property of capitalists, to stop, break up strikes, and those kind of things, all with racial dynamics. And so today, we see essentially the same relationship. Albeit Republican relations spins of cop shows and everything. You can't even see TV without looking at a cop show. Make us think the police are here to protect and serve us. But in fact, they're here to protect and serve the status quo and keep us in control. So if we have to initiate, our first thing now is survival as a surplus population. So how do we initiate projects that fortify, certify, or secure some survival, and then at the same time build the liberation struggle that we need to see? Oh, there's a whole lot more to say, but we'll get into it. Thank you.
Wow, that is fantastic. Just incidentally, some housekeeping. If anyone would like to start a sign-in sheet with contact information and share it amongst the people that are here, that's something that's always beneficial that we could then make copies of and share with our panelists and talk about his organization, just in case anyone's interested in that. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the question and answer period. Dr. Clark talked about hip hop and the relationship with social movements and the activism there. And I'm really interested, just food for thought, the degree to which Pan-African consciousness through hip-hop transcends tribe and clan, because you talked about the lyrics, and when you listen to those lyrics, it really talked about transcending tribe and clan. And then with respect to what Netfa shared around class struggle, I would be really interested in, just food for thought, the degree to which Pan-Africanism, either perhaps envisioned by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, or by you or people today, can transcend class struggle. And what does that vision really look like? Are you talking about a classless society? I'm looking forward to you fleshing that out. So our next speaker is Dr. Alexandra Gelbard. She is a PhD candidate in sociology at Michigan State University. I think that's where the debate was last night. It was in Detroit, of course, but same state. She's rooted within African diaspora sociology and is one of several scholars engaging the theoretical propositions of Ruth Sims Hamilton towards advancing African diaspora studies as a discipline. Her work examines African diaspora communities of consciousness and music in Cuba and the Americas. Please.
It's truly an honor to be here today. I study African diaspora communities of consciousness, which I'll define a little bit later on in my remarks. But I'm rooted in Cuba, and Eastern Cuba at that. Eastern Cuba Oriente has been the epicenter of the African presence in Cuba. It's a region that's phenotypically darker than the rest of the island, and it's been the center of where all the liberation movements from Cuba have originated. But it is also typically excluded from the literature and from our knowledge and assumptions about Cuba. But today I'm actually going to talk about the Ruth Sims Hamilton propositions, and I think her propositions have not, for whatever reason, haven't really been included in our conversations on the diaspora, on how we conceptually think about the